All right, so we saw that day, like how to launch a browser dynamically. Okay, and we also saw uh, how we can use the concept of interfaces. Okay, I created an interface and I use these two classes, and then I told you that how interfaces they actually help us write a code which can work on multiple browsers. Right. So once the driver is ready and you have reached the website, you have to interact with the elements of the website. Okay. Or to understand the elements of the website, you need to understand the concept of HTML, right? The HTML code and how it works. All right. So, hold on, just a minute. So, I hope you have installed TestNG. I had asked you to install TestNG, right? So, now, okay. So, every page which opens, right? For example, you go to our website. Every website which opens has a page source. If you look at the page source, then you will find the HTML language inside the page source. In HTML, you have got tags and attributes. Okay, for example, uh, this is the div tag. Okay, and it's got attributes like ID, class, and role. This is the input tag. It's got many other attributes. So with the help of these tags and the attributes, we go and identify the elements on a web page. The tag, it can have no attributes, okay, or it can have one or many attributes as well. All right. For example, this is the button login. Right. If I want to see the page source of this button in Chrome, you can right click on this button and you will see the option of inspect. You click on yeah, guys, sorry, my net had disconnected. Okay, so I hope you are able to hear me now. Right. So I told you that if you want to inspect any element, you can right click on the element, go to the inspect option. This inspector will open up. You can switch to top to bottom view from here. Okay. Now this there is an arrow over here. If I click on this arrow and move my mouse over the login button and click on it, I will get the HTML code for this login button. Okay, it's an anchor tag A, right? The anchor tag generally is a link, right? Whose text is login, right? If I change this text over here in the page source, which you can certainly do, you will see that the button text becomes XYZ. So this page source actually controls the whole thing. Okay, the elements they are displayed on the basis of the page source, right? Okay, so now what we are going to do is we will be, you can say we will be learning how to identify the elements with the page source and how Selenium actually identifies the elements. Okay, so if you look at the Selenium API, if you look at the documentation, right, there will be a interface, hold on, known as a web element. The web element is an interface which represents a basic HTML element. Okay, on a web page, everything falls under web element. A button is a web element, a link is a web element, a text field is a web element. Everything is a web element. Okay, and if you look at this interface, then it's got methods which help you to interact with elements on the web page, like get the text of the element. Okay, and click on the element, clear the element, right? Okay, now out here, I'll make a new project A04. Just a minute. I'll add the jar files. Right, and then I'll create a new class known as say simple. Suppose I'm trying to log in somewhere. Okay, a very basic thing, right? And I'll create a test case in testng which I had told you that to install, right? So you add the testng library, you import the annotation, and we will use this code out here to simply launch the browser, which I had told you. And suppose we go to the website, let's try the Rediff login, right? So suppose, right? So let's go and try to log in over here. Okay, now if I have to interact with the elements on the web page, then I have a command in Selenium known as driver.findElement. Almost all of you must have heard about this command. Okay, this goes and finds the element on the web page, the web element. Okay, it returns you the reference of the web element interface. Okay, if you look at the WebDriver interface, then in WebDriver interface, you have this command find element which I am using. It returns you the element, web element interface reference. Okay, like web element, I'll call it as a username is equal to driver.find element. Now you have to find the element with some mechanism or criteria. Okay, so that criteria is defined by the by class. There is a by class which defines the criteria with which the web element is extracted. Okay, so if you open this by class, it's got the mechanism used to locate the elements within a document. Okay, and there are different mechanism functions. Okay, like we have by ID, by link text, by the name, right? There is something known as XPath. There is something known as CSS selector, right? Everything, all these functions in these classes are static. Static means you can directly access them by the class name. Okay, so by which criteria you want to identify the element that will come up in this particular class, right? The most easy is that if the element has an ID or a name, right? For example, if you look at this login page and I inspect the web page and I look at the username field, it's an input tag. The input tag has an attribute known as ID user email. It's also got a name. So I am taking the most easiest thing that the element has an ID, right? And if an element has an ID, it's supposed to be unique and it's really easy to identify the element. Fine. So you can give the criteria over here. Find the element. If you write by dot, you will get the function names in the by class. Okay, all the functions in the by class are static, so you can access them directly by the class name. You can write by the ID and you can give the ID over here. Okay, right. And you can import this web element interface. So this is the username handle now. Okay, what do you want to do with the username? You can write a username dot send keys and you can give the username out here. Okay, and if I run this, send keys means typing in the text field. The send keys function is used to type in the text field. Right, it's a function in the web element interface. Right. So if you look at the web element interface, you will see that there is a send keys function. Use this method to simulate typing into the element. All right. Now, if you run this code, right. Okay. Similarly, you can inspect the password field. The password field also has an ID and it's got a name as well. Okay. So you can write over here web element password is equal to driver dot find element by the name. You can give this name over here, right? And you can read by the name, and you can write password dot send keys. If you want to encode your password, you can use base64 encoding in Java. You can just Google it out. It's very simple, two-line code. Okay, base64 encoding, right? And if I run this, you see that it's typed the password as well. And if you want to click on the submit button, right, the ID is login submit. This button has an ID, right? So if element is having ID or name, it's really easy to identify it. And that's what we are learning right now. Okay, so button dot click. So first you extract the web element and then you interact with the web element. Okay, so when you run this code, right, and okay, button, hold on, right, I think this website is, it's not logging me in. By the ID, hold on, it's going too fast in execution. Yeah, it's signed in now. Okay, this website might have some issue. Okay, so it's logging me in now. Now, to interact with one element, I'm writing two lines of code. In the first line, I extract the element, and then in the next line, I interact with it. Okay, I'll comment this whole code. You can do this in one line. Okay, you can write driver.find element, you extract the web element, and then fire the function on it. Okay, so the execution starts from the left to the right side. First, the element is extracted, and then you fire the command on it. Okay, so there is no need to write two lines of code. Okay, and by the ID login submit. Okay, so in one line only, you can run everything. You see that it logs you in, right? I hope you got my point, right? Now, not every element will have an ID or a name. Sometimes there are elements which have no ID or name. Okay, for example, if I want to click on this my watch list link, it's got no ID. It's an anchor tag. There is a href tag on click function, right? There is no ID. Okay. So to manage elements, how do you manage elements which have no ID or name? You have to use XPaths or you have to use the CSS selectors. Okay, we'll see that in some time, right? And what if there are two elements on the web page which have the same ID? It should not happen. But what if there are two elements on the web page with same ID? If you look at the WebDriver interface, then find element command will find the first web element. It says it will find the first web element. Selenium as a tool, it Selenium as a tool scans the page from left side to right side and goes at the bottom. Okay, the 0, 0 coordinate is over here on the top left side of the web page. So if there are two elements, one is say out here, the other one is out here, and both of them have the same ID, then driver.find element will use the first one. It will not use the second one. Okay, if you want to use the second one, there are ways for that, and I am going to tell you later on. Okay, so this is the thing, driver.find element will find the first web element. Now, at times, what happens is, suppose if I give a user email as this, okay, which is actually not existing on the web page, and when you run the program, this thing runs, and immediately you get an exception, which is no such element exception. Unable to locate the element with the selector. Okay, so you cannot just at times, if the element is not being able to extracted, you want Selenium to wait for some time. You want Selenium to wait and search the element for maybe 10 seconds, and then you would want Selenium to actually throw the exception. But out here, if you look at this, then this is the web page, and as soon as it opens, within fraction of a second, you get this exception, no such element exception. All right. So if you want to avoid this, or if you want Selenium to wait for some time before throwing the exception, you have to define implicit wait. You have to use implicit wait. Okay. So as soon as you launch the browser, what we do is we give a command always driver.manage.timeouts dot implicitly wait duration of seconds, say 20. So first of all, this command has to be given after you open the browser. Okay, and it is applicable to all driver.find element commands. Okay, so it is applicable to all the driver.find element commands, and it will wait max for 20 seconds for the element to be present on the web page. Okay, sorry. So if the element is available in the 10th second, it will use it and move forward. So it's a dynamic wait. It will keep on polling the web page, and as soon as the element is available, it will simply use it. And if it is not available till 20 seconds, it will throw an exception. Okay. So if you run this, you will see that the exception won't be thrown immediately. So Selenium will keep on, see it's still running. So Selenium will keep on polling the web page for 20 seconds. And after 20 seconds, it will throw the exception. Right, so you just have to give this command once after you open the browser, and then Selenium goes in the, see the exceptions one now. So Selenium will always wait dynamically. And as soon as it finds the element, it will use it. See, if I comment this and if I give the right ID and run it, you will see that the execution happens at the right pace. Okay, you see that it's logging you in. Right. At times, people also use the command thread.sleep, say 5000. So thread.sleep is something like sleep. You order Selenium to sleep the current thread to make the current thread go in the sleep mode. So this is actually a wait which is like mandatory for 5 seconds. Okay. No matter whether the element appears within 5 seconds, what happens? There will be a pause in the execution for 5 seconds. All right. So I think this is a better option because this is a dynamic wait which will be applicable to all the driver.find element commands, and it will wait dynamically for the maximum 20 seconds. At times people do use this. I don't say that thread.sleep is bad. It solves many problems at times. Okay, using it at one or two places in the program is good, but if you are using it again and again after every line, then it's not good. Okay, because this thing slows down the script. It can be used once or twice or thrice, okay, but don't use it after almost every line because it will slow down the script. Okay, right. So this is implicit wait. Implicit wait will wait till the element is present on the web page. It waits till the presence of the element. Okay, not the visibility. I'll come over to the visibility later on. Right. Anybody with any questions?
Uh, like when we use the explicit wait too, like I have no idea about the difference with the explicit and implicit wait time.
I could not understand you. Sorry. Can you repeat?
Like it's implicit wait, right? So there is another one is explicit wait. Uh,
Yeah, that I'll take care later on about
okay.
explicit wait. Okay, if you have to exclusively wait for a certain element, then we use explicit wait. Okay,
Okay. Thank you.
but uh, if you have to give a global waiting time, then you can go for implicit wait.
So
Okay,
the thread dot slip. So is it explicit wait because it's gonna stop anyway?
thread.sleep is like pausing the program.
Okay.
Okay, thread dot sleep simply pauses the program, nothing else. Okay. So right, but we should not use thread dot sleep. Okay. It's not a very good thing. Okay. Right. Now, once we are done with this, like sometimes, also you have when you use driver dot find element dot click over here on the button. Sometimes you enter the user ID and password and you hit the enter button of the keyboard instead of clicking the submit button. Right. So you can also simulate that with Selenium. Okay. So you can, instead of this, you can also write driver dot find element by the name password dot send keys, and you can write keys dot enter. So the focus of the mouse would be in the password field after you have written the password. So you on the password field you send keys dot enter. There is a keys class internal which represents all the keys of the keyboard. Okay, so you can also do this. The output would be the same. You see that it logs in. You can also create a free account on this website. Okay, it will be used later on as well. Okay, so this website is having issues. It's not letting me in. Right. Anyways, right now, um, this is day 4, day 3. Right. Hold on. So we have seen how to launch the browser dynamically, set an implicit wait, and then go to the website. So, whatever we learn, whatever test case we write, whichever test case, this code would always be there in that particular test. This would always be there, launching the browser, setting the implicit wait. Okay, so I'm going to make a reusable utility through which I don't need to write this code again and again in every example or test we do. Okay, and we'll use the concept of inheritance for that. We'll learn inheritance, right? And I'll explain you in very easy format. Okay, it's quite easy concept. Okay, if I have uh, uh, a class city, right? It will have a variable known as int population and a function like public void um, print details, right? So it can also have a name. So in print details, I can print the name and the population of the city, right? So if I make a new class known as London, so London is a city. There is a relationship of the type is a. Whenever there is a relationship, you have inheritance in Java. London is a city. So Either I have one option that I declare these functions and the variables in the London class, or in order to avoid it, I can write extends city. So London, if you write extends city, then whatever is in the city class becomes the part of London. Okay, London technically it's known as the child class, and city it's known as the parent class. Okay, if I just make a new class with a test city and with the main function, and if I create the object of London class, right? London class is empty, there's nothing inside it, but I can access the function print details. Okay, if you run this, it prints null and zero. Right now, I have not initialized these variables. Okay, you can initialize the name to London. Okay, so if you run this, so you can access anything in the London class. You can access the name variables and the print details function. And actually, you don't have anything in this class. It is extending the features of the city class. It can have more functions in it, and because it is extending the features. Okay, so post football match, something like this. Right. So apart from this function, it will also have the functions and the variables from the city class. So basically, whatever is there in the city class, London class can access it. So that is why London is known as the child class. Child inherits some things from the parents. Okay. So London is inheriting from the city class, and city is the parent class. Right. So now the same concept of inheritance we are going to use, right? I'll make a new class or Java project known as Selenium Basics, and I'll add the jar files. Right, and I'll create a new package. Okay, package is like a folder. Okay, I'll call it as the base package, and I'll create another package known as day 4. Right, and I'll copy the program which we just made. Package is just like a folder inside the folder. It helps you to organize your stuff. Okay, so this is the login.java file which we had made. I'll paste it in day 4. Okay, you have to add the testng library. Right, so the package name is on the top of the project always. Okay, now this code I have to unnecessarily write in every class. Right. So in the base package, I'll create a class known as base, or I can also call it test base. Right. And I can make a function in it, open browser, in which you will send the browser name. Right. And I'll remove this code from here and the code to launch the browser, and I'll paste it in test base class. Okay. I'll declare my WebDriver globally. Okay, so right. So whatever browser you are passing in this function, the driver will be initialized, right? And we will also set the implicit weight. Okay, right. And my class, login class can extend the test base class. Okay, so if I'll have to import this because this is in a different package, right? So if a class is extending another class, it will acquire all the features of that test base class. In the test base class, I have got WebDriver function, sorry, the variable, and I have got the open browser function, right? So it will have access to both driver as well as open browser function, right? And you can call the open browser function from here, Chrome. So I don't need to write that code again and again in every Java file or the test file which I will make, right? If I run this code, the output would still be the same, but the code to open the browser, I have actually kept it inside the test base class. Fine, so this is reusable. This will be used in every test, and always remember immediately after opening the browser, you have to give implicit weight. So this is inheritance. In simple words, in the most simplest form, okay, you can have one class which can extend another class, right? You cannot have one class extending two classes, okay? This is not allowed in Java. Okay, you can have one class extending another class, and whatever are the features of the other class come in that particular class. Any questions regarding this? Anything? Right. Okay. So I hope this thing is clear to you. And this function we are going to use again and again in the coming classes as well. Okay. Now, once you have opened the browser, you have navigated to a website and you are able to, find the elements and all everything. Not every time you would find that you are able to extract or you are able to get the ID or the name of the element. Okay, right. So we use over there, we use XPaths, we use CSS selectors. So these are the two mechanisms, okay, over there where there is no identifying criteria, right? You can use by the XPath, or there is also command known as CSS selector. So we'll study now. And one more thing, guys, I executed this script on Chrome. If the same thing, if I run on other browser, if I run on Mozilla, then it's going to run on Mozilla as well. Okay, because hold on. Okay, jQuery driver path. I think they have updated Mozilla. I will have to get the exe. Yeah, it's opening now. Okay. So the same code will run on Mozilla as well. You will be able to log in and see it enters the username and the password. Right. So you don't have to worry. You inspect the web page on one browser and you can use it on another browser. Okay, Mozilla also gives you the options to inspect the elements on the web page, but I prefer to do it on Chrome because Chrome inspector has, every browser has its inspector, whether it is IE, whether it is Edge. Okay, so but I prefer to use Chrome because the Chrome inspector has got a lot of features. Okay, the IDs and the names and the other parameters remain same for all the browsers. Okay, right. So you just inspect the web page on one browser and then you can make the script run on other browsers as well. All right. Now coming over to XPaths. Let's look at XPaths first. Okay. In Selenium Basics project, I'll create a new file known as xpaths.txt. Okay. There are two types of XPaths. One is the complete XPath, or it is also known as absolute XPath. Other one is the partial XPath. Okay, so if you look at the complete XPath, right, if you inspect the element, right, and suppose I have this drop down, right, or I have this simple link rediff.com out here. So if I have to build the complete XPath of this particular link, then I will start from the base of the document, which is the HTML tag. Okay, if you hit Control F of the keyboard, Control F when you are in the inspector, if you hit Control F, then you will see a small text field coming at the bottom where you can type something as well. Okay, so if I have to build the complete XPath, then I'll start from the base tag HTML. See, as soon as I type HTML, the HTML tag becomes yellow in color. It is able to find it over here. Inside the HTML tag, there are two tags, head and body. Somewhere inside the body tag, you have the rediff.com link. So you would want to go inside the body tag. Okay, so you write over here /body. So the body tag gets highlighted. Inside the body tag, there are tags which are parallel to each other. Div tag, iframe, source div. So these are parallel tags. And you want to go inside this division tag because somewhere inside this division tag, the element rediff.com link is available. So this division, there are many division tags under this. First one is this, second one is this, third one is this, and fourth one is this. You want to go inside the fourth division tag. You don't want to go inside the initial ones. So you write over here div bracket 4. Div bracket 4 means that there are four or more parallel division tags. Please go inside the fourth division tag. Inside the fourth division tag, you keep on traversing this way. Okay, till the time you reach this rediff.com image anchor tag. So you don't need to make this XPath manually like this. This is the way you make it. You can simply, right click on the element and you will get the option to copy full XPath, the absolute XPath. right? It will get copied, and if you paste it over here, this is the one. Starting from the root of the document, HTML, body, div 4, and inside that div 2, div. So it will keep on traversing from the base of the document till the time you reach the element. Okay, so you can find the complete XPath for any element this way. For example, for the login username field, we had used the ID and the name, but what if ID and name were not present? You can copy the complete XPath, and this is the complete XPath from the base of the document. Okay, although this complete XPath is quite accurate, there is a very high degree of accuracy in this. We don't prefer to use it because if something changes in the application, then a lot of XPaths will change. If something changes at the very root after the body tag, then I will have to change all my XPaths. Okay, so we prefer not to use it, but I don't say that you should not be using it. At times when nothing is working, this is working, you can use it to what else we can do then, right? So instead of using by the ID user email, you can also write driver.find element by the XPath. Okay, dot send key send. So you can put the XPath of the username field over here, right? And when you run this, see this is working. Okay, it types in the username, right? So this complete XPath, it's quite accurate. You can extract it, but what we prefer is we prefer to use the partial XPaths. There is also something known as custom XPaths, which we'll also see. Right. So I'll stop here for today instead of going for partial XPath right now. Okay. Um, and also just a minute.